Aurora Hale never imagined her life would explode in a single night. She had spent 8 quiet years behind the scenes designing lights for Broadway stages, supporting her husband Damian Ward as he climbed the tech world, smiling through every stiff charity photo and every exhausting investor dinner. She believed marriage meant partnership. She believed effort meant loyalty. But that belief shattered under the blinding flashes of a Manhattan red carpet. The night it happened, Aurora wasn't even supposed to be there. Damian had tossed her an invitation at the last minute, telling her she might as well come, just to fill the seat. She wore a simple black dress, the same one she'd worn 5 years earlier, because she didn't know she needed something more glamorous. She thought she was attending as his wife. She was wrong. When the limousine door opened at the entrance of the Park Avenue Tech Gala, Aurora stepped out first, only to realize Damian wasn't beside her. He was behind her, walking hand in hand with Lila Monroe, the model whose face covered half the billboards in Los Angeles. Lila leaned into Damian's arm, smiling at the cameras as if she'd won a prize. Reporters shouted her name. Damian tightened his hand around Lila's waist, pulling her closer, as if Aurora was invisible. As if his own wife had never existed, Aurora froze, her breath collapsing inside her. For a moment, she wondered if she was dreaming. But no, every phone camera pointed at Damian and Lila proved the nightmare was real. One reporter finally noticed Aurora and asked, "Who's she? A stylist? Personal assistant?" Damian didn't correct them. He didn't even look at her. Aurora felt the world tilt. Her heartbeat roared in her ears. She wanted to run, to scream, but her legs stayed locked in place. The man she had devoted nearly a decade to was publicly replacing her, and she was forced to watch. Later that night, inside the shimmering ballroom filled with investors, Damian approached her with a chilling calmness. He leaned in, fixing his tie, and whispered, "Don't make a scene. You were never built for my world anyway." And that was when Aurora understood. This wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. This was betrayal planned, rehearsed, and meant to humiliate her. And the cruelest part was still waiting for her just a few hours later. Aurora Hale had always been the kind of woman people underestimated. Not because she lacked talent, she was one of the most gifted lighting designers in New York, but because she didn't know how to take up space. She was gentle to a fault, raised in a small Minnesota town where her mother taught her that a good wife stayed patient, supportive, and quiet. Aurora carried those lessons into adulthood, believing kindness was her strongest shield. Before she met Damian Ward, she had dreams of her own. She wanted to open her own studio in Manhattan, designing lighting for theaters and live shows. She wanted to create magic on stage, colors that made people feel hope, silhouettes that made audiences gasp. She even saved up for a MacBook Air, filling it with early sketches, each named after a story she once believed she'd bring to life. But then Damian appeared. He was charming, bold, brilliant, everything Aurora thought she wasn't. He made her feel seen, admired, even treasured in the beginning. He told her she was the calm in his chaos, the light in his storm. And when he started his tech company, he convinced her to help him create prototypes for a new visual display algorithm. She, naive but in love, gave him her ideas freely. "You're my partner," he promised. "What's mine is yours." Aurora believed him. So she shelved her dreams, stopped taking freelance jobs, and poured all her time into being the supportive wife. She built Damian's world while quietly letting hers fade. 8 years passed like that, slowly, silently, invisibly. But behind her soft demeanor, Aurora had a core of steel she never learned to recognize. She survived long nights alone while Damian traveled, endured the pressure of pretending their marriage was perfect at charity galas, and forgave the small betrayals she never fully understood: late-night texts, unexplained meetings, the way he flinched when she entered a room unexpectedly. She convinced herself love required endurance. She didn't know love wasn't supposed to hurt. That night at the gala, the night Damian humiliated her in front of Manhattan's elite, Aurora walked home alone. She didn't take a car. She didn't want to hear her own heartbreak echo inside the silence of a back seat. Instead, she walked the length of Park Avenue, heels shaking, mascara smudged, gripping her purse like it was the last piece of her old life. She kept replaying the same question: what did I do wrong? She didn't know the answer wasn't about her at all. The next morning, when she woke in the penthouse she no longer recognized, Aurora caught sight of herself in the mirror. Her eyes were swollen, her makeup ruined, but something inside them had changed, something quieter, sharper. A realization she wasn't ready to understand yet. Because within the next hour, Damien would deliver the blow that would destroy the last pieces of her old world, and force Aurora Hale to become someone she never imagined she could be. New York had always been a city that dazzled Aurora, its lights, its noise, its endless pulse of ambition. But the version of New York she lived in with Damien was different. It wasn't the artistic, unpredictable, soulful Manhattan she once dreamed of. It was a world built from glass towers, strict expectations, and a kind of beauty that demanded sacrifice. Their penthouse was perched above Fifth Avenue, one of those shimmering units with floor-to-ceiling windows that stretched across the Manhattan skyline. At sunset, the whole place turned gold. People who visited said it felt like living inside a dream. But to Aurora, it sometimes felt like living inside a museum, quiet, perfect, and not meant to be touched. Everything in that home reflected Damien's taste. Sleek lines, black marble, imported glass tables, a bar cart stocked with whiskey he rarely drank but loved showing off. He had a Mont Blanc pen displayed in a case like a trophy, and a row of limited edition coffee table books he never opened. He told Aurora her colorful decor ideas didn't match the brand. That word brand had slowly replaced everything else in their life. The penthouse was beautiful, yes, but it was also cold, silent, and staged for people who were never Aurora. And their social world was even colder. Damien's rise in the tech world pulled them into circles. Aurora never felt prepared for fundraisers at the Ritz-Carlton, rooftop parties in Tribeca, late-night investor dinners, where she sat smiling politely while conversations swirled around IPOs, valuations, and strategic partners she didn't know. She often clutched a glass of sparkling water just to keep her hands busy, praying no one would notice how out of place she felt. She wasn't glamorous like the women in those rooms, women in couture gowns, wearing Cartier bracelets stacked up their wrists, laughing effortlessly with venture capitalists who admired both their beauty and connections. Aurora was soft-spoken, modestly dressed, and uninterested in performing. Damien used to tell her, "Just stand beside me, that's enough." But in recent months, he stopped saying even that. Lately, he brought her to events only if he needed her presence to appear respectable. Other times, he left her home entirely, and Aurora, craving any sign that their marriage still mattered, accepted it quietly. This world, his world, was not built for someone who valued sincerity over spectacle. The hustle, the competition, the constant comparison, it weighed on her until every outing felt like a test she was failing. Still, Aurora tried. She showed up. She swallowed embarrassment. She told herself that love sometimes required bending. But love, she would soon learn, should never require disappearing. Because on the morning after the gala, as sunlight spilled into that beautiful, empty penthouse, Aurora believed she had survived the worst night of her life. She didn't know Damien was standing in the hallway, holding papers that would burn her entire world to the ground, and that he was about to tell her something no wife should ever hear. Damien Ward had always been a man who loved attention. Aurora just hadn't realized how much. In their early years, he used to tell her he hated the spotlight, that he preferred quiet nights working on code with her by his side. But somewhere along the line, success rewired him. The moment investors began calling, the moment his name appeared in Tech Weekly, something inside him shifted. He no longer wanted to build a company. He wanted to build a legend. And legends, he believed, required an audience. Lila Monroe conveniently came with one. Lila was the kind of woman who turned every room into a stage. At 27, she had mastered the art of being watched. The perfect laugh, the practiced vulnerability, the effortless beauty that made people forget she was calculating every detail. Her career had been rising slowly until she discovered the power of attaching herself to powerful men. Damien was simply the next rung on her ladder. What Aurora didn't know was that the affair hadn't started recently. Damien had been meeting Lila for almost a year. It began as brand consulting, Lila advising him on how to shape his image for the upcoming IPO. But within weeks, their meetings shifted from conference rooms to hotel lobbies, from professional courtesy to whispered conversations behind closed doors. Damien told himself Aurora wouldn't understand his world anymore. Lila, with her glamorous circle and perfectly curated Instagram life, fit the image he wanted investors to see. She was sharp enough to flatter him and ambitious enough to make him feel powerful. Aurora, by contrast, reminded him of the man he used to be: simple, earnest, grounded. And Damien no longer respected that man. The morning after the gala, he entered the penthouse like someone completing a chore. Aurora sat at the dining table, her fingers wrapped around a cold mug of coffee, eyes still swollen from crying. Damien didn't ask if she was okay. He didn't apologize. Instead, he placed a sleek folder in front of her legal documents, with her name spelled out in sharp black letters. "It's time we both move on," he said. "You and I, we're not aligned anymore." Aurora stared at the papers, her breath trembling. "Aligned? Damien, I'm your wife." He sighed as if she were inconveniencing him. "You were, but the company is about to IPO. Image matters. Stability matters. Investors expect a certain kind of partner." He didn't say Lila's name, but he didn't have to. Then came the cruelest blow. A clause stating Aurora would receive almost nothing: no claim to the penthouse, no share of the company she once helped him build, not even recognition for her early contributions. "This is generous," Damien added. "Take it quietly, and we won't have to make things messy." Izar. For the first time, Aurora truly saw the man she had married, not stressed, not misguided, but cold. And just when she thought he had reached the limit of his cruelty, Damien leaned in, lowering his voice so she wouldn't miss a word, and revealed the one betrayal that would shatter her far deeper than the affair ever could. Aurora had always believed endings happened quietly: a door closing, a suitcase packed, a conversation whispered through tears. But Damien didn't end their marriage in private. He didn't even end it with dignity. He ended it the way he lived now, publicly, cruelly, and with the kind of performance that made it impossible for Aurora to pretend she hadn't been replaced. The humiliation began just 2 days after the gala. Aurora had been avoiding the outside world, too ashamed to answer texts from friends who had seen the photos of Damien and Lila. She stayed in the penthouse, moving through the rooms like a ghost, packing slowly, folding memories she wished she could forget. She thought she had reached the worst of it. Then Maya called. "Aurora, have you seen the news?" Her stomach clenched. "What news?" Maya hesitated. "Turn on Channel 8. Aurora reached for the remote with shaking hands. The screen lit up, revealing a morning show panel discussing Damien's new romance, flashing pictures of him and Lila at the gala, smiling, holding hands, posing for the cameras like a couple in a fairy tale. The headline burned across the bottom of the screen: "Damien Ward confirms new relationship ahead of IPO." Sources say his former marriage quietly ended months ago. Aurora felt the blood drain from her face. "Former marriage?" she whispered. "Quietly ended? Months ago?" The hosts continued chatting as if they were discussing the weather. "Lila Monroe is the perfect match for Damien's evolving image," one said. "She's everything investors love: polished, modern, glamorous. And rumor has it," another added, "she'll be accompanying him to all future events." It's a big step for the company. Symbolic, really. Symbolic. As if Aurora had never existed. As if she were just a placeholder until someone more photogenic arrived. Her hands trembled so violently she nearly dropped the remote. She turned off the TV, but the silence felt even louder than the broadcast. She stumbled toward the window, staring down at Fifth Avenue below, watching taxis blur past like streaks of yellow light. Her chest tightened until she couldn't breathe. Her phone buzzed again and again. Messages from acquaintances, co-workers, even distant relatives poured in. "Are you okay? Is it true? I'm so sorry. I had no idea." Every ping was another cut. But the sharpest wound came from a different notification, a glowing, polished Instagram photo posted by Lila herself. It showed her curled into Damien's side, wearing a silk dress Aurora had once complimented. The caption read, "Some connections are meant to be. You can't fake alignment." Aurora's knees weakened. She sank onto the cold hardwood floor, tears streaming down her cheeks. For the first time, she didn't even try to hold them back. Then, as she wiped her face with trembling fingers, the penthouse door suddenly clicked open. Damien walked in with a look Aurora had never seen before. Not guilt, not regret, but a chilling sense of finality. And he brought someone with him. Someone whose presence would destroy whatever pride she had left. Damien didn't enter the penthouse alone. Behind him walked a woman in a charcoal suit, carrying a leather briefcase and a stack of documents. Aurora recognized her instantly, Damien's corporate attorney, a woman who had never once looked Aurora in the eye during 8 years of marriage. "Let's make this simple," Damien said, voice clipped. "I don't want weeks of emotional back and forth. We can end this today." Aurora stood frozen in the living room, her cheeks still wet from crying. "End this? Damien, you humiliated me on national television. Can't we at least talk like human beings?" He scoffed. "I tried. For months, I tried to get you to evolve, Aurora, to fit into my world. But you stayed small, safe, invisible, and I'm done waiting." The lawyer stepped forward, placing a folder on the coffee table with a soft thud. "These are the finalized dissolution documents. Mr. Ward has agreed to a settlement." Aurora opened the folder. The pages swam before her eyes. A small stipend, no rights to the penthouse, no share of the company she once helped him build, no acknowledgement of her early contributions. Nothing. "This is nothing," she whispered. "It's fair," Damien corrected coldly. "You never cared to understand what I built." "What you built," her voice cracked. "Damien, I stood by you when you had nothing." His jaw tightened. "And now you'll walk away with dignity if you sign." Dignity. He used the word as if it meant silence. The room felt smaller by the second. Aurora's chest burned, breath shallow. Every memory, every late night making him tea during coding marathons, every canceled job so she could help him prep for pitches, every bruise she hid behind a smile, when people compared her to the glamorous women around him, rushed back like a flood she could no longer hold. "You're replacing me," she said. "And doing it publicly." Damien didn't even deny it. "Lila understands the direction my life is heading. She elevates it. Investors like her. She's the right partner for me now. If you want a day." Aurora's vision blurred. The lawyer's pen rolled across the table, stopping at her elbow. "If you sign today," the attorney added, "we can avoid litigation and unnecessary exposure." Exposure. As if Aurora was the scandal. Her hands trembled violently. She pushed the papers away and backed up until her shoulders hit the cold window. "I can't do this right now." Damien exhaled sharply. "Then I need you to leave the penthouse by the end of the week. I've already arranged movers." "Wanaji, you're kicking me out?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "You'll land on your feet," he said dismissively. "You always do." But Damien didn't know Aurora at all, not the part of her that had been breaking quietly for years. And when the elevator doors closed behind him, silence swallowing the room, Aurora finally collapsed to her knees, sobs tearing out of her like a storm she could no longer contain. She thought she had reached her lowest moment. But the next morning, she would discover a betrayal so deep it would change the course of her entire life. The morning after, Damien kicked her out, felt like waking inside a nightmare she couldn't escape. Aurora barely slept. Every sound, the hum of the refrigerator, the traffic far below, pressed against her skull like reminders of the life that was slipping away from her. She moved through the penthouse in a daze, folding clothes into cardboard boxes, trying not to look at the empty spaces where her dreams used to live. She opened a storage cabinet she hadn't touched in years. Inside, there were neatly stacked sketchbooks, binders, old laptops, and a dusty cardboard box labeled in her handwriting. Aurora Light Projects. She froze. She hadn't seen that box since the first year of their marriage, back when she and Damien worked side by side at their tiny kitchen table, chasing ideas and possibility. Her breath caught as she pulled it out and set it on the bed. The cardboard crumbled at the corners, evidence of how long it had been ignored. Inside were the early drafts of her lighting algorithm concept, the one she designed before Damien ever wrote a line of code for his company. She remembered staying up until 3 a.m., mixing her knowledge of stage lighting with basic programming to build something unique, a system that adjusted brightness, motion, and color temperature in real time based on audience interaction. Damien had been amazed. "This could be huge," he'd said back then, pulling her into his arms. But after his company took off, he never mentioned it again. Aurora sifted through the papers slowly, her fingers trembling. She found diagrams, color response charts, and the original prototype notes. And then, tucked between two binders, a thick envelope. It wasn't hers. Inside were legal documents bearing Damien's signature. A technology patent, filed 3 years ago. Aurora skimmed the lines, heart pounding. The patent described a lighting response algorithm nearly identical to her design, her diagrams, her color calculations, even her phrasing. But the inventor listed was Damian Ward, not Aurora Hale, not even co-creator. Her hands went cold. He hadn't just abandoned her. He hadn't just humiliated her. He had stolen her work. Suddenly, pieces of the past clicked into place. His insistence that she stop freelancing, the way he discouraged her from saving her designs on her laptop, his constant reminders that she wasn't interested in the business side. He had slowly erased her from the narrative so no one would question the origin of his success. Aurora staggered back until she hit the edge of the bed. Her chest felt tight, like her ribs were closing in. "This was mine," she whispered, clutching the papers. A sound escaped her, a half sob, half gasp. She wasn't just losing a husband. She was losing years of work, dreams, and identity. And then, at the bottom of the envelope, she found something even worse. An internal memo from Damian's legal team advising him on how to block any claim she might make to the technology. He had planned everything. Aurora's tears dried instantly, replaced by a cold, rising fury she barely recognized. Because in that moment, as she stared at the proof of his betrayal, she realized there was one person alive who knew exactly what Damian had done, and that person was already looking for her. Aurora wasn't sure how long she sat on the floor after discovering the stolen patent. Minutes blurred into hours. The sun shifted across the penthouse windows, turning the room from harsh daylight to a soft orange glow. But nothing softened the weight inside her chest. She couldn't stay there. Not another second in Damian's world. So she packed the last box, grabbed the folder of stolen documents, and walked out of the penthouse for the final time. No tears. No backward glance. Only a hollow ache and a strange, simmering clarity. Outside, the evening wind along Fifth Avenue carried the chill of early spring. Aurora walked aimlessly until her feet carried her to the High Line, a place she had once loved for its quiet beauty. She sat alone on a bench overlooking the city, hugging the folder against her chest, fighting the urge to scream. She didn't notice the man who paused several steps away, watching her with a puzzled expression. Graham Lockwood had come to the High Line for a rare moment of solitude. Most people didn't recognize him. He preferred it that way. While his partners flaunted their wealth across magazines and media, Graham cultivated invisibility. It made deals easier. It made life quieter. But he had an uncanny eye for people in pain, especially the kind that didn't show on the surface. He noticed the trembling in Aurora's hands, the uneven breathing, the stiff way she held the folder as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. Aurora startled, clutching the folder tighter. "I'm fine," she said quickly, though her voice cracked. Graham didn't buy it. Not for a second. He had sat in too many boardrooms with too many broken men, pretending they weren't broken. He recognized the fracture lines. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "You just look like someone carrying too much alone." Aurora exhaled shakily. Something about his quiet tone disarmed her defenses. She looked down at the folder in her lap and whispered, "Someone stole something from me. Something I can never get back." Graham hesitated. "May I?" he asked, nodding toward the folder. Aurora hesitated too, but something inside her wanted the truth, even if it hurt, so she handed it to him. Graham flipped through the document slowly, his expression shifting from curiosity to concentration to something darker. Aurora watched his jaw tighten, his brows draw together. Finally, he closed the folder with deliberate care. "Where did you get this?" he asked. "My husband stole it from me," she whispered, filed it under his own name. Backstreet. Graham inhaled deeply, the weight of the situation settling in his posture. "This isn't just theft," he said quietly. "This technology is worth millions, maybe more. And based on what I'm seeing, you're the true inventor." Aurora blinked at him, stunned. I don't understand." Graham stood slowly, offering her his hand. "Aurora, you're sitting on something far bigger than you realize. And if Damian Ward is as reckless as this paperwork suggests..." He paused, eyes locking with hers. "Then your husband didn't just betray you. He built an empire on your name, and he has no idea that someone like me knows the truth." Aurora stared at Graham, unsure what to say. Her world had been unraveling so quickly that she no longer trusted her own instincts. She expected judgment, maybe pity, But Graham's eyes held something else: recognition, as if he understood pieces of her she hadn't spoken aloud. "Who are you?" she finally whispered. "Someone who's seen this kind of theft before," Graham said, "and someone who knows what it costs." He didn't elaborate, but there was a heaviness in his tone that made Aurora realize he carried scars of his own. Before she could respond, he motioned toward a quieter corner of the walkway, away from joggers and tourists. "Tell me everything," he said. Aurora hesitated. She'd never told a stranger intimate details of her marriage, but the dam inside her had cracked too wide to hold back the truth anymore. So she told him about the years she supported Damien, the nights spent drafting lighting algorithms, the moment he began treating her like an inconvenience. She spoke about the gala, the public humiliation, the divorce papers, and finally the stolen patent. Graham listened without interrupting, hands folded, expression steady. Not shocked, not condescending, just present. When she finished, she felt drained, as if she'd emptied out the last of her strength. Graham let a beat of silence pass before he spoke. "Aurora, this isn't just emotional betrayal. This is corporate theft. Damien built the cornerstone of his company on your intellectual property. If that patent is tied to any major investor presentations or IPO filings, it changes everything." Aurora stared at him, confused. "What do you mean, everything?" "I mean," Graham said, "you have leverage. Legal, financial, and public leverage." She shook her head. "I'm nobody. He has teams of lawyers. I have a rented room and a box of old sketches." "You have the truth," Graham corrected. "And you have proof. Most people in your position have neither." His confidence unsettled her. It sounded too unreal, too hopeful. "Why are you helping me?" she asked quietly. "You don't know me." Graham's expression softened. "Because I know what it feels like to be betrayed by someone you trusted. My ex-business partner stole my first company out from under me, left me with nothing but the pieces of a dream I built." He paused, voice low. "Someone helped me once. I'm just returning the favor." Aurora's throat tightened. She looked down at the folder again, suddenly seeing it not just as evidence of pain, but as something powerful, something alive. Graham stood. "Let me connect you with a legal team that won't be intimidated by Damien or his board. But we need to move quietly. If he finds out, he'll bury whatever evidence he can." Aurora swallowed hard. "What should I do?" "For now," Graham said, "you rebuild yourself, piece by piece. Strength first, strategy second." He took a step back, studying her with surprising gentleness. "But understand this, Aurora, what Damien stole from you may be the very thing that destroys him." She exhaled shakily, unsure whether to believe him. Graham's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his expression changing instantly. "And it looks like Damien just made a mistake big enough that we can use it." Graham's expression sharpened as he glanced at his buzzing phone. Aurora watched him pace a few steps away, lowering his voice as he answered. She couldn't make out the words, only the sudden tension in his shoulders. When he hung up, he turned back to her with a look that made her heart lurch. "What happened?" Aurora asked, gripping the folder tighter. "Damien just filed preliminary IPO materials," Graham said. "And your algorithm is listed as a core component of the company's valuation. He's presenting your work to Wall Street as if he built it from scratch." Aurora felt the blood drain from her face. He's still using it?" "He can't launch without it," Graham replied. "And that means he's more vulnerable than he thinks." She sat back down, the metal bench suddenly too cold, too hard. "I never wanted to destroy him," she whispered. "I just wanted the truth acknowledged." "Sometimes truth doesn't stay quiet," Graham said gently. "Sometimes it demands a spotlight." He sat beside her, not too close, but close enough that she felt anchored. "Aurora, this is your turning point. You can stay broken, or you can take back what's yours. Not out of revenge, but out of justice." Justice. The word felt foreign on her tongue, but powerful. Graham reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a simple business card. "This is a law firm specializing in intellectual property theft. They're discreet, ruthless when needed. I'll cover your consultation." Aurora blinked. "You don't have to do that." "I know," Graham said softly, "but right now, you need someone in your corner." His sincerity disarmed her more than anything else. She realized she hadn't had anyone in her corner for a very long time. He continued, "I'll also set you up with a temporary workspace. A friend of mine owns a small creative studio in Soho. Use it. Refresh your portfolio. Rebuild your identity outside of Damien's shadow. A surprising warmth spread through Aurora's chest, a feeling she hadn't recognized in months. Hope. But fear still lingered. What if Damien retaliates? Graham didn't hesitate. Then he exposes himself. Men like him always do. Aurora looked down at her hands, then at the city skyline glowing behind Graham's silhouette. Something inside her, something she thought had died, stirred again. Not anger. Not revenge. Resolve. I'll do it, she said quietly. I'll fight. A small smile tugged at the corner of Graham's mouth. Good, because whether you see it or not, Aurora, you're stronger than he ever realized. She exhaled shakily, letting the truth settle into her bones. For the first time since the marriage fell apart, she felt the weight on her shoulders lighten, not disappear, but shift. Graham stood, offering her a hand to rise. She took it, feeling steadier than she had in weeks. Come on, he said. Let's start rebuilding your life. Aurora nodded, clutching her folder of stolen dreams, dreams she would now reclaim. But as they walked toward the exit of the High Line, Aurora's phone buzzed with a new message. She opened it, and her breath caught. It was a threat. From Damien, and he knew she was no longer staying silent. Aurora's fingers tightened around her phone as the message glowed on the screen. You're making a mistake. Stop whatever you think you're doing. You won't win. The sender. Damien. Her stomach twisted. Not from shock, she'd expected anger eventually, but from the cold precision of his tone. No emotion, no hesitation, just warning. Damien never raised his voice. He didn't need to. His power had always been in his quiet certainty that the world bent in his favor. Graham noticed her pale expression. What did he say? Aurora handed him the phone. As he read the message, his jaw flexed, a tiny crack in his normally calm demeanor. He's scared, Graham said. He doesn't sound scared, Aurora whispered. That's because men like Damien threaten when they're losing control. Fear comes disguised as power. He gave the phone back to her gently. Don't let him pull you back into the place he kept you. And it sicked her. But Aurora felt old instincts creeping in, the ones Damien spent years cultivating. Doubt. Silence. The urge to shrink so no one would call her difficult, emotional, irrational. Part of her still wanted to disappear, to avoid being the reason a powerful man grew angry. What if he ruins me? She asked, voice barely audible. Graham turned toward her, his expression firm, but not unkind. Aurora, he already tried. And you're still standing. The words hit deep. She hadn't realized how much she needed someone to say them. They left the High Line and walked toward the street where Graham's driver waited. In the back seat of the Mercedes, Aurora clutched the folder of documents like a lifeline. Graham spoke quietly to someone on the phone, an attorney. She assumed, dropping phrases like intellectual property, breach, valuation, exposure, and pre-IPO vulnerabilities. If we wanted it. Aurora didn't understand the legal jargon, but she understood one thing. Damien had more to lose than she ever did. When they arrived at the Soho Creative Studio Graham arranged for her, Aurora felt a strange mix of gratitude and fear. The space was warm, filled with natural light, wooden tables, and the faint hum of music drifting from somewhere upstairs. Not glamorous, not cold human. Real. She set her folder on the desk, her hands trembling. I don't know if I can do this, she admitted. Graham leaned a hand on the table beside her. You don't have to feel brave to be brave. You just have to keep going. She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. She opened her MacBook Air, the same one she once used to sketch dreams Damien never valued. The screen lit her face, softening the tightness in her chest. For the first time, she opened a new project file. Blank, waiting for her. A fresh start. But before she could type a single word, the studio door swung open. A woman hurried inside, sharp suit, urgent footsteps, eyes scanning the room until they landed on Aurora. I'm with Lockwood Partners, she said breathlessly. We need to talk, now. Aurora stiffened. What happened? The woman glanced at Graham, then back at Aurora. Damien Ward just filed an emergency motion against you, and he's accusing you of stealing his technology. Expection. Aurora felt her throat close as the woman from Lockwood Partners stepped fully into the studio, shutting the door behind her. Graham straightened, his calm demeanor sharpening into something far more alert. "What motion?" he asked. The woman, Harper Lewis, senior litigation strategist, opened a leather portfolio and pulled out a printed document. Damian Ward filed an emergency injunction this afternoon. He's accusing Aurora of illegally accessing proprietary files and attempting to sabotage his IPO. Aurora's heart dropped. "What? That's not true. Those designs are mine." Harper nodded sympathetically. "I believe you, but Damian is moving aggressively. He's claiming you stole sensitive company property during the separation. He's asking the court to restrict you from disclosing any materials related to the algorithm." Aurora pressed a hand to her forehead. "He's trying to silence me." He's trying to bury you," Harper corrected gently, "and to protect himself before investors start asking questions." Graham stepped closer, his voice low and controlled. "How bad is it?" Harper exhaled. "Bad enough that if Aurora doesn't respond immediately, the court could issue a temporary gag order. It would cripple her ability to fight back." Aurora felt dizzy. Just when she thought she finally had a chance, Damian had already slammed another door shut. "I don't have his resources," she whispered. "He knows I can't fight him." Graham's voice softened, but there was steel beneath it. "That's where he's wrong," Harper continued. "We need to prepare a countermotion tonight. But more importantly, we need undeniable evidence that you created this technology first." Aurora looked at the folder on the desk. "My sketches, the prototypes, they're all in there." "That's a start," Harper said. "But we'll need more. Emails, timestamps, saved drafts, anything proving you developed the concept before Damian filed the patent." Aurora sat at the desk, opening her old MacBook Air. Her hands trembled as she navigated ancient folders she hadn't touched in years. Slowly, pieces of her old life resurfaced: video files, drafts, date-stamped sketches, proof, tangible proof. Graham watched her closely. "Take your time," he said. "Every file you recover is a brick back in your foundation." "Inshare," Harper added, "and if Damian escalates, we escalate harder. Men like him depend on people giving up. Don't give him that victory." Aurora swallowed the knot in her throat, forcing herself to breathe. She uploaded the files into a secure drive, each click strengthening something inside her: a new spine, a new resolve. After an hour, Harper gathered everything. "This is enough to punch a hole in his claim," she said. "We'll file first thing in the morning. Minus God." Aurora sagged back in her chair, exhausted but steadier. "Thank you," she murmured. Harper nodded, then glanced at her buzzing phone. "I should get going. There's something else you need to prepare for." Aurora's pulse quickened. "What now?" Harper hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Damian isn't acting alone. Someone close to him just submitted a sworn statement accusing you of fraud." Aurora felt the oxygen leave the room. "A sworn statement? From who?" Harper's eyes flicked downward for a moment, as if bracing for the impact her words were about to deliver. "Lila Monroe." Aurora's chest tightened. Graham muttered under his breath, something sharp and angry. Harper placed her portfolio on the table and opened it, sliding a printed affidavit toward Aurora. The first page was enough to make her stomach twist. Lila Monroe swore, under penalty of perjury, that she had witnessed Aurora attempting to access confidential prototypes belonging to Damian Ward months before the separation. She claimed Aurora had expressed intent to sabotage Damian's career out of jealousy. She even alleged Aurora once tried to claim credit for Damian's rightful work. Every word was a lie. A cold wave washed through Aurora. She had expected cruelty from Damian, but Lila's involvement felt like a blade in the back. "Why would she do this?" Aurora whispered. Graham looked at her with a quiet certainty. "Because Damian asked her to. And because she gains everything if you disappear." Harper nodded. "Lila's statement strengthens Damian's injunction. It paints you as unstable, vindictive, and capable of theft. Judges don't like mess. They often side with the party that seems more controlled. Damian is counting on that." Aurora pressed her palms to her temples. It wasn't enough that Damian stole her work. Now Lila was stealing her character, her reputation, her voice. "I can't compete with this," she said, voice cracking. "Public opinion, legal paperwork, a model with millions of followers telling lies about me." "Stop." Graham's tone was firm, cutting through her panic. "You are not powerless. You have truth. You have evidence, and you have a team now." Harper added, And Lila just made a strategic misstep. She's not careful, her career depends on her image. If we can find inconsistencies in her statement, we can discredit her entirely. Aurora shook her head slowly. I don't want revenge. You're not seeking revenge, Harper said. You're protecting yourself. Graham leaned forward. And you're protecting the work you created, the life you deserve. Aurora felt a tremor inside her. Not fear, not anger, but a small ember of something she thought she'd lost completely. Belief. She forced herself to read the affidavit again, line by line, until her tears cleared and a strange calm settled over her. Lila's words weren't just lies, they were desperate lies. Aurora could feel it. Something about the tone, the precision, it was too polished, too rehearsed. Look at this, Aurora said suddenly, pointing to a line in the report. She claims I accessed Damien's prototypes on January 14th. Harper leaned closer. Yes? Aurora's eyes narrowed. I was in Minnesota that day. With my mother. I have photos, receipts, everything. Damien knows that. Graham's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. Then this entire statement might collapse with one provable contradiction. Aurora straightened, breathing deeper. Maybe Damien and Lila weren't invincible after all. But before she could feel hopeful, Harper's phone buzzed violently. She checked the screen and her expression turned grim. Aurora, you need to sit down. Lila just went public, and she named you as boss. Harper's voice wavered as she repeated the words that had just appeared on her phone. Lila posted a public statement, and it's already getting traction. Aurora felt her pulse hammer against her ribs. What did she say? Graham gestured for Harper to read it aloud. Harper opened the link to Lila's Instagram, which had over 9 million followers. The caption sat beneath a polished photo: Lila, in a white silk dress, eyes soft, expression wounded. It was the kind of picture designed to make people feel protective of her before they even read the words. Harper began reading. I've stayed silent out of respect for everyone involved, but I can't stay silent anymore. Damien and I have been dealing with a painful situation caused by someone close to him. A woman who has been trying to destroy his company and reputation out of resentment. I witnessed behavior that frightened me. I saw attempts to steal sensitive files. I saw instability. I saw someone spiraling. Aurora felt her stomach knot. Harper continued. I don't want to name names, but the truth is the truth. Sometimes people break, and they lash out at those they once claimed to love. The comments poured in live as Harper scrolled. She means the ex-wife. Wow, Aurora sounds unhinged. Damien deserves better. Protect Lila at all costs. Women like that ruin good men. Aurora's hands shook. The words blurred. She wasn't just being discredited, she was being erased, replaced by a caricature of a jealous, unstable woman. It's working, Aurora whispered. People believe her. Harper closed the phone gently. Influencers know how to control a narrative. Lila's painting herself as the sympathetic victim. If we don't respond correctly, the public will turn even harder. Aurora's throat tightened. She couldn't compete with makeup, lighting, scripted vulnerability. She didn't know how to fight in a world where perception mattered more than truth. Graham stepped closer. Look at me, he said quietly. You are not losing. This is noise. Ugly noise. But truth doesn't disappear because someone shouts louder. I don't want to be part of this circus, Aurora murmured. You don't have to play her game, Graham said. We'll use the legal route. Facts. Proof. Judges don't care about social media. Harper nodded. And we have something stronger than her lies. Verifiable evidence. Once we present your timestamps, travel receipts, and original drafts, her sworn statement collapses. And her credibility collapses with it. Aurora clutched the folder against her chest. I just can't believe she'd do this. She doesn't even know me. She doesn't need to know you, Graham said. She only needs to fear losing what she wants. Silence settled over the studio, heavy and suffocating. But then Aurora's phone vibrated again, another notification. Harper froze. Don't tell me. Aurora swallowed hard and turned the screen toward them. It wasn't Lila. It wasn't Damien. It was worse. A news outlet, one tied directly to major investors, had published a breaking headline. Aurora Hale under investigation for corporate theft. Sources say she could face criminal charges. Her breath stilled. And beneath the headline was a single sentence that made Graham's face turn to stone. Anonymous insiders claim Aurora Hale tried to extort Damian Ward before their separation. Aurora stared at the headline until the words blurred together. Criminal charges, extortion, anonymous insiders. Every accusation was a direct attack not only on her credibility but on her character, on the quiet, gentle woman who had spent 8 years trying to be nothing but supportive. She felt the studio tilting around her, the air thinning. For a moment, she thought she might faint. Harper grabbed her shoulder. "Sit down. Breathe." Graham stood motionless, jaw clenched, the kind of anger building in him that didn't explode outward. It calcified, sharpened, turned deadly precise. "This isn't just PR spin," he said. "This is strategy. Damian wants to bury her before she can speak." "Can he win?" Aurora whispered. "No," Graham replied firmly. "Not if we move first. Thanks for watching." "And Preeter?" Harper opened her portfolio again, flipping through documents with rapid efficiency. "Aurora, we need to file our counter-motion by morning. And we need more supporting evidence, original drafts, email timestamps, anything linking you to the initial creation of the algorithm." Aurora nodded shakily. "I have old laptops, old cloud backups." "Good," Harper said, "because once we present the timeline, his entire narrative collapses. If your work predates his patent filings, the court will see the truth." But something deeper gnawed at Aurora. "Even if the law is on my side, the world thinks I'm unstable. Desperate, dangerous." "That's temporary noise," Harper said. "Public memory is short, truth lasts longer." Graham added quietly, "And you won't face any of this alone. I'll make sure you have every resource you need, legal, financial, strategic." Aurora looked into his eyes, and something inside her steadied. Graham wasn't offering pity. He was offering partnership, the kind Damian promised but never honored. She turned back to her laptop and began searching through old cloud drives. Every recovered file was a small piece of her identity, snapping back into place. Drafts from 5 years ago, color mapping charts from an old freelance gig, a video file dated long before Damian's patent filing. Proof. Pure, unshakable proof. After 2 hours, Harper gathered the evidence into a secure drive. "This is enough," she said. "We can not only counter his injunction, we can file a claim of ownership." Aurora blinked. "Ownership?" Harper nodded. "If the court recognizes you as the creator, Damian loses rights to the algorithm entirely. His IPO valuation collapses. Investors panic. And the board will turn on him." It was more than Aurora had dared imagine. Not revenge, justice. But Graham wasn't smiling. He was staring at his phone again, a shadow crossing his face. "Graham?" Aurora asked. "What is it now?" He looked up slowly, his voice controlled but colder than she'd ever heard it. "Aurora." Damian just escalated. He didn't just leak lies to the press. He stepped closer, lowering the phone so she could see the email. "He submitted your name to federal investigators. He's trying to have you indicted." Aurora stared at Graham's phone, her pulse pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. Her name? Submitted to federal investigators? It didn't feel real. It felt like a nightmare wearing Damian's face. "He's trying to get me arrested," she whispered, barely able to form the words. Harper reacted instantly. "This is intimidation. A manufactured federal inquiry meant to terrify you into surrender. And frankly, it's sloppy. They won't act unless there's concrete evidence." Aurora pressed her palms to the desk. "But the headlines, the lies, what if the investigators believe him?" "They won't," Harper replied. "And if Damian pushed this through unofficial channels, it could backfire. Badly. Filing false or misleading reports is a federal offense." Graham's expression hardened. Damian thinks he's untouchable because he's days away from the IPO. Men like him always believe timing protects them. Aurora sank into her chair. The exhaustion of the last few weeks crashed over her. She had walked away from her home, her marriage, her career, and now she was being dragged toward criminal charges over technology she created with her own hands. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Graham crouched beside her, speaking with quiet steadiness. "Aurora, look at me." She lifted her tear-filled eyes. "You are not going to prison. You are not going to be silenced. Damian is panicking. And panicked men make stupid decisions." Harper nodded. "This move tells us he's terrified you'll expose the truth. That means we're close, very close to the point where he loses control. Aurora inhaled deeply, forcing her shaking hands to steady. So, what do we do now? Harper tapped the secure drive containing Aurora's evidence. We do the opposite of what he expects. We don't hide. We file our ownership claim publicly. The moment it hits the court, his federal stunt looks retaliatory, petty, even malicious. Why? Graham added. And investors will see him as unstable, a liability. Harper flipped open her portfolio and began drafting the filing right there in the studio. Aurora watched, marveling at the fierce precision in her strokes. Every sentence Harper wrote was a piece of her truth finally being spoken. But then Harper paused. We need one more thing, she said slowly. A witness who can confirm Aurora's role in the algorithm's creation. Aurora felt her stomach drop. Damien isolated me from everyone. I don't know who could speak for me. Graham straightened, thinking. There has to be someone. A former colleague, a friend, an engineer Damien worked with early on. Aurora shook her head until a memory surfaced. A quiet laugh, a kind face, someone who had once encouraged her sketches before Damien shut the door on that part of her life. I think, Aurora whispered, I know someone. Harper closed her portfolio. Good, because if they're willing to testify, this case shifts completely in our favor. Graham stepped back, pockets tightening around his fists. Who is it, Aurora? She exhaled slowly, barely believing the name coming out of her mouth. Damien's former co-founder, the one he betrayed before he betrayed me. Aurora hadn't spoken the name in years, not since Damien erased the man from every story he told about the company's beginnings. But she remembered him, Eli Turner. Soft-spoken, brilliant, the kind of engineer who built systems not for glory but for the joy of solving impossible problems. He used to visit their tiny apartment when Damien and Aurora were newly married, brainstorming alongside them while Aurora sketched her lighting concepts at the same table. Until suddenly, he vanished. Damien claimed Eli lacked ambition, that he was slowing the company down. But Aurora remembered the tension, the closed-door arguments, the way Eli's eyes dimmed the last time she saw him. She later learned quietly and years too late that Damien had pushed him out during the first investment round, forcing him to sign an NDA that kept him buried in silence. Now, that silence might be the key to saving her. I haven't spoken to him since he left, Aurora said, but if anyone knew how much I contributed in the early days, it was Eli. Graham's expression sharpened. Can you find him? Aurora nodded. I think so. He moved to Portland after everything happened, started freelancing. Harper already had her laptop open. Give me his full name. Within minutes, she located Eli's current consulting business. A modest website, no photo, just a list of technical services. This is promising, Harper said. If he was forced out, he may have motivation to speak, but we'll need to tread carefully. If the NDA is still active, we can't push him to violate it. If neither watch, Aurora exhaled. He deserves justice too. Damien stole from him long before he stole from me. Graham stepped closer. Then let's give him a chance to speak his truth. They arranged a video call for the next morning. Aurora barely slept, torn between fear and hope. When the screen lit up at 9 a.m., showing Eli's familiar but older face, her heart tightened. His eyes widened in surprise. Aurora? It's been so long. I wasn't expecting to hear from you. And fast. She swallowed, her voice fragile but steady. Eli, I need your help. Damien. He's claiming I stole his technology, but you know the truth. You were there when I designed the early system. Eli leaned back, rubbing his forehead. Damien always feared this day. Aurora froze. What do you mean? Eli's voice cracked slightly. After he pushed me out, he told the investors the algorithm was his idea, but he knew it wasn't. He knew it was yours. He spent months rewriting your documentation to erase your influence. Harper's eyes widened. Graham went still. He filed the patent without you, Eli continued. And yes, he made me sign an NDA, said if I ever spoke, he'd ruin me professionally. Aurora felt tears sting her eyes. Eli, I'm so sorry. He gave a sad smile. You don't owe me an apology, Aurora. Damien does. Harper leaned closer toward the camera. Eli, we need a sworn statement confirming Aurora's role. We don't need internal documents, just your personal testimony. Eli hesitated, then nodded. I'll do it. It's time someone stopped him. Aurora exhaled in relief just as Eli added one more sentence that made her go cold. But there's something else you don't know. Damien didn't just steal your work. He stole something that could put all of us in danger. Eli's words hung in the air like a crack of thunder. Aurora felt her breath stall. Danger? Eli, what are you talking about? Eli glanced over his shoulder, as if afraid someone might be listening. Even through the screen, Aurora sensed his unease. Damien didn't just steal your algorithm. He used it to build something else, something far riskier. Graham leaned forward. Explain. Eli sighed heavily. The original algorithm Aurora designed was meant for adaptive lighting, artistic applications, stage performance, immersive environments. But Damien realized it could do more. Much more. He re-engineered it to track behavioral patterns. Audience reactions, eye movement, emotional responses. It became a data mining tool disguised as an entertainment feature. Aurora's skin crawled. That's not what it was meant for. I know, Eli said. But Damien pitched it to investors as a breakthrough in predictive user engagement. What he didn't tell them was that the system collects biometric data without proper disclosure. If regulators look too closely, the entire company collapses. Harper's eyes widened. So he built his IPO pitch on illegal data harvesting. Exactly, Eli replied. If Aurora's claim is validated and the technology is traced back to her original work, regulators will dig deeper. And when they do, well, let's just say, Damien's looking at more than losing the company. He's looking at criminal exposure. Aurora felt sick. Damien hadn't just taken her ideas, he'd corrupted them. He turned something meant to create beauty into something invasive and dangerous. Graham's voice hardened. Eli, is this documented? Yes, Eli said. There are early drafts, internal notes, but I couldn't keep copies because of the NDA. Still, I can testify to the conversations. The meetings, the moment he told me, no one needs to know how the engine really works. I should have spoken up then. Aurora shook her head. You were threatened, manipulated. And so were you, Eli murmured. Harper tapped her pen against her notebook. This changes the legal landscape. Aurora's claim isn't just ownership anymore. It becomes a whistleblower-level disclosure. Courts take that seriously. Regulators take that seriously. Aurora looked down at her hands, trembling lightly. I never wanted to destroy him. I just wanted the truth. And this, Harper said gently, is the truth. For the first time, Aurora didn't feel fragile. She felt resolute. Damien had built an empire with stolen bricks, then weaponized it to hurt her. But now, the cracks in his foundation were finally showing, and this time, she had people beside her who wouldn't let her fall. Eli added quietly, there's one more thing. Damien has documents, hidden records he didn't want anyone to see. If you find them, you'll have undeniable proof. Aurora's pulse quickened. Where are they? Eli hesitated, fear flickering in his eyes. In a place only you would think to look. Because he never believed you'd have the courage to go back there. Aurora's voice shook. Go back where? Eli swallowed. To the penthouse. He hid everything in your old design studio drawer because he thought you'd never return. The moment Eli said the word penthouse, Aurora felt her entire body tense. She hadn't stepped inside since the day Damien forced her out, since the humiliation, the shouting, the hollow echo of her own footsteps as she carried out the last box of her life. The thought of returning made her stomach twist. It wasn't just a physical space, it was the graveyard of her marriage, her dreams, and the woman she used to be. But she also knew Eli wouldn't have said it unless the evidence was real. Damien had always underestimated her. Of course, he would hide everything in a place he believed she'd never have the strength to revisit. Graham must have sensed her fear. You don't have to go alone, he said gently. Aurora nodded, trying to steady her breath. I won't. Harper looked at the clock. If the evidence is as significant as Eli says, we need it before Damien realizes we're looking. Once we file our claim, he'll panic and he'll try to destroy anything that implicates him. Aurora grabbed her coat, her determination solidifying. Then we go now. They took Graham's car to Fifth Avenue. The closer they got, the more Aurora's heart pounded. The streets looked the same, bright storefronts, polished windows, the hum of expensive silence, but she felt different. Stronger, sharper. No longer the woman who once tried to disappear inside that penthouse. When they reached the building, the doorman hesitated, unsure whether to let Aurora in after the very public divorce and the swirling rumors. Graham stepped forward, his voice low and authoritative. "She's entering her own former residence, and you're going to allow it." End quote. Something in his tone, calm, powerful, made the doorman step aside without another word. Inside the elevator, Aurora's hands trembled around the folder she still carried everywhere. Graham's presence beside her was steadying, a quiet anchor. When the elevator doors opened, the familiar scent of the penthouse, citrus, steel, and polished stone hit her like a ghost. The place was immaculate, staged like a museum again. Too perfect, too intentional. "He's expecting a walkthrough for investors," Harper murmured. "Looks like he's been preparing for the IPO showcases." Aurora walked toward her old design nook, a small alcove Damien never cared about. She opened the bottom drawer, the one where she once stored ribbons, fabric samples, old sketches of lighting concepts she hoped to revive someday. Her breath caught. Inside was a locked black box. Graham knelt beside her. "This has to be it." Important. Aurora entered the old passcode she used for their shared safe, a date Damien always claimed he never remembered. Click. The box opened. Inside were multiple hard drives, a stack of printed data reports, investor briefing drafts, and a second patent application with Aurora's original handwritten margins still visible along the edges. Harper inhaled sharply. "This is everything. Proof of theft, proof of data misuse, proof of intent to deceive regulators. Aurora, this is the nail in his coffin." Aurora felt a surge of emotion, relief, grief, vindication, all crashing into one. But before she could close the box, the penthouse door suddenly swung open. Damien's voice echoed through the hallway. "Aurora, what the hell do you think you're doing?" And he wasn't alone. Lila was with him, and both of them looked ready for war. Damien stormed into the penthouse with the fury of a man who believed the world belonged to him. Lila trailed behind, her perfect expression cracking as she spotted the open black box in Aurora's hands. For the first time, Aurora saw fear flicker in both of their eyes. Damien pointed at her. "You're trespassing. Put that down, now." Aurora rose slowly, holding the box to her chest. "This is my work, my handwriting, my algorithm. You abandoned it," Damien snapped. "You walked away." End quote. "No," she said softly. "You stole it." Graham stepped forward, positioning himself between Aurora and Damien. "And now we have the proof." Lila's voice trembled. "Damien, I thought you said—" "Shut up," he hissed. Harper pulled out her phone. "Just so you know, everything you're saying is being documented for the filing we make today." Damien's face reddened. "You can't file anything. I already sent your name to federal investigators. You're finished." "As anyone." Aurora felt the old fear tug at her chest, fear he had spent years planting, but now it met something stronger, something unmovable. "Actually," she said, lifting one of the hard drives from the box, "you're the one under investigation. These files show you collected biometric data illegally. And this," she held up the patent with her original notes visible, "shows you lied to your investors." Lila's knees buckled. "Damien, is this true?" He didn't answer. Harper placed the documents in her briefcase, like chess pieces, falling into checkmate. "By tomorrow morning, the SEC, the federal regulators, and the board of your own company will have copies. Your IPO is dead." Damien lunged forward, but Graham blocked him effortlessly. "Touch her," he warned, "and I'll personally make sure you lose more than your company." Aurora stepped around Graham, her voice calm. "When you pushed me out, Damien, I thought you broke me, but you didn't. You freed me." End quote. Damien's mouth twisted. "You think anyone will believe you? You're nothing without me." Aurora held his stare. "Then why does every piece of evidence in this box prove you couldn't build anything without me?" Silence. Lila slowly backed away from Damien, her voice cracking. "You ruined me. You made me lie for you. You volunteered," he snapped. "But it didn't matter. The illusion was shattered. The king stood naked on his broken throne." Graham rested a hand on Aurora's back, steady but respectful. "We should go. You've won." As they walked to the elevator, Aurora paused, looking back at the penthouse, one last time, not with grief, but with clarity. "Goodbye, Damien," she said. "Enjoy the world you built. You'll be facing it alone." The elevator doors closed. Within days, the headlines shifted. Damien Ward under federal investigation. IPO collapses after fraud discovery. Aurora Hale, confirmed as original inventor. Board removes Ward as CEO. Investors fled. The board ousted him. Lila cut ties. Damien lost everything. Aurora, however, stepped into a new chapter. With Graham's quiet, unwavering support, she launched her own lighting tech studio, this time with her name etched proudly on every design. Word spread. Investors reached out. Her work lit stages across Manhattan. And one evening, as the San Francisco Bay glowed beneath a soft sunset, Graham took her hand not to save her, but to walk beside her. "Aurora," he whispered, "you rebuilt your life. Let me be part of whatever comes next." She smiled, the kind of smile that only grows after surviving a storm. "I'd like that," she said. And this time, she wasn't stepping into someone else's world. She was stepping into her own. Justice served. Love earned. And Aurora Hale finally rising into the light she created. So, our story has finally come to an end. And if you're still here with me, right now, listening to these last words, then something in Aurora's journey must have touched your heart in its own quiet way. Maybe it's the reminder that betrayal doesn't define us. Maybe it's the truth that healing is not weakness, it is power. Or maybe it's simply this: you are stronger than the person who tried to break you. The Stoics used to say, the obstacle is the way, meaning the very thing meant to hurt you can become the force that shapes your future. Aurora didn't rise despite the pain, she rose through it. And so can you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And when you understand that, no one can steal your light ever again. If this story made you feel something, hope, courage, clarity, anything at all, let us know. Hit the like button so we know you're out there. Share this with someone who needs strength today. And don't forget to subscribe, because there are so many more stories waiting to help you find your power again. We're here with you, always.